time, thoughts, and equanimity. So I'm going to do something that I've never done before. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to do a 3-video series on this topic, or this collection of topics. The reason is that I've had a couple of very good conversations over the last day or so about how these aspects of our experience interrelate: time, thought, and equanimity, or peace. And it's a broad enough topic that doing more than one video will help to unpack it more clearly and to approach it from a few different angles. So let's start by discussing what is the nature of time. The first time we hear about this, now, or presence, in a way that catches our attention, that we get a little taste of what's being pointed to, is always nice. It's the entry point into an investigation of the deeper nature of time and presence. To be reminded that really being in the now is the most experientially enjoyable way to be. That being lost in the mental world of time, the future and past, is somewhat uncomfortable, or very uncomfortable, depending on how emotionally charged the situation is. It's important to recognize this. So we learn that we can redirect our attention to presence, to the now. And that feels good. What's interesting about this is that for quite a while, even if we actively practice this and find techniques to bring ourselves back to the now, we never really believe it at a deep level. We still experience ourselves in time, and we believe that at moments on that timeline, when things get particularly uncomfortable, we can remind ourselves about this magic place called now and sort of get a taste of it. And just give us a little bit of respite so that we can jump back into that stream of time and start thinking again. Start contemplating the future and planning and thinking about the past and regretting and et cetera, et cetera. And that's often our initial or superficial understanding of what now means, or what presence means, or what the illusion of time is all about. And of course, this is fine. If this provides respite, if it reminds us to come back to the present, that's great. But understand, when you believe you're coming back to the present from not the present, you're already presupposing something that's inherently untrue and inherently uncomfortable. And that is that you can be out of the present. So you could say that this way of thinking about now, or becoming more present, or returning to now, is sort of the mind's version, or the ego's version of presence. And the ego's fine with this. It doesn't feel threatened by this at all. It's like, sure, we can do that. We can do presence, right? I'll put that in a timeline. I'll plan it during the day. I'll plan how much time I want to spend being in presence. So understand that way of thinking, that way of perceiving presence and now and time is fine. And it can lead to some cracks in the walls of the matrix. It can lead to an opening, a bit of light shining through, the light of eternity. And sometimes doing that enough times, exploring this type of contemplation, will break something open big enough to where you can't ignore it anymore. You get that pre-taste, that experiential taste of something completely beyond the way you're used to experiencing yourself. Beyond not just spatially, but beyond in depth, beyond in subtlety, a sublime experience. And that's great. Now, as realization deepens, and especially after someone's gone through fundamental shifts in their identity, the experience of time changes. It feels less solid, more variable. Periods of presence just come out of nowhere. And when they do, and this is a really important point, it's clearly seen that presence, or this nowness, is primary to, or clearly more real than, that internal world of living as a person in time with memories and control and choice. And when those periods of intense presence occur, it's clearly more enjoyable, more peaceful, more equanimous. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but it is a word. I looked it up. The point is, it's far more enjoyable than the usual way of being in time, being a chooser, a struggler, a reactor, a manager, an actor. And so we enter this strange phase after awakening where we feel in time and out of time. We know what eternity is instinctually. And then sometimes it just seems so obscured we cannot figure out where it went. And yet, at some level, we know it didn't go anywhere. So this phase of realization is one where we see clearly that the previous way of experiencing or thinking about now or presence was very much thought-based. And now we're starting to taste really what presence actually is. And it's pretty radical. It's pretty powerful. It's very powerful. It's far more powerful than us, and it's intimidating in a way. This is a threat to the ego. The ego doesn't like this. This is where it starts fighting. It starts coming back with fire. It starts pulling all the repressed material, the stuff you thought you had left behind you as you evolved into an adult, those painful emotions, sadness, guilt, rejection, fear of intimacy, fear of abandonment, fear of helplessness. It starts pointing to these and saying, if you go much farther, these are going to overwhelm you. They're going to take over. You'll just be a disaster. Now, the surfacing of repressed emotional material in and of itself is fine. It's completely fine. But the ego structures and the persona and sense of separate self was built out of an avoidance of feeling that all the time, of feeling those emotions, of experiencing them, of accessing all parts of yourself. So it's uncomfortable when this shifting occurs. But the emotions aren't the fault of the ego. The ego is the one in the background saying, I can manage these, I can do something about them. It's also the voice that's afraid of them, that doesn't want them to be there, that feels like it's struggling. Those are the ego structures on high alert. When you feel like you've been pulled into your head and the thought stream is endless, and yesterday you felt presence and you have no idea what to do about this, that's just the defense mechanisms of the ego. So again, this phase of things is the tumultuous, no person's land of post-awakening spirituality. And it's very common. But presence still isn't experienced as the primary mode of experience. We get tastes of it, and then we solidify into a sense of separate self again, and then presence, and then separate self, meing and being, flip-flopping, fluctuation is just the way this goes for a while. Now, at this point, good inquiry can be really powerful. We can start to investigate the nature of time and the nature of thought and the nature of equanimity directly. And the way to do this is very simple. It's just slowing down, not pushing thoughts away, not making them the enemy, not entertaining a belief that thoughts are a marker of me not being enlightened and trying to figure out a way to get rid of them, but just seeing they're just one form of vivid experience right now, completely harmless. And when we slow down in this way, and we are willing to direct our attention into thought, into consciousness, and we behold one thought at a time, we just notice whatever thought is arising and whatever thought is here, exactly as it is. Just notice it. Look at the story it's telling. What does it say? Does it say, if I apply this practice right now, I'll have this effect? I know this because I remember a time when that worked, and I'm hoping for a future time where I have that effect and feel better. Is that what the thought says? That's just one thought. Let's look closer. Where is that thought? Where is it in time? Is it in the past? No. Is it in the future? No. Are you in the past right now? You as whatever, whether it's awareness, as I don't know, doesn't matter. Are you in the past? Are you in the present or the future? Just feel into it. You're right here. The thought is right here. That thought doesn't point anywhere. It tells a story about a past and a future, but when you experience only this presence, this present moment, and the sensory experience of it, and the thought, which is also this present moment, part of it, there's no timeline. There's no time at all. There never has been. There's only this moment. And when we see and feel that there's only this moment, and when we see and feel that there's only this moment, things get far more simple. You don't have to recall the past because there's no past to recall. Because the only evidence you have of a past is one thought, and it's here right now. The same thought. Don't push it away. Don't run to the next thought. And the future. There's no future to plan for because there's only this one thought right now. There's only this presence right now. So where are you going to find a future? Where would you look? Where would you find a past? Where would you look? So this process of recognizing that a thought suggests a past and a future, but the thoughts that suggest the past and future can only occur right now. We've just assumed that what they're talking about exists. All evidence to the contrary. We have no evidence of a past or a future. We've never had evidence of a past or a future, except a secondhand story. The ability to remain with a single thought, to slow down enough, to hold one thought in consciousness, just that one thought, and look at it really closely. Hold it up like a gem you found on the beach. Pick it up and look at it. Turn it around. Look at it from all angles. See, is there a past or a future in that gem? Or is there just the vivid splendor of the experience of it right now? I'll make 2 other videos to follow up and go a little more in depth in this process and the clarification of presence as the only possibility. Presence is something so obvious that to even talk about it is kind of silly, because it suggests there's a possibility of not presence.